Unless you have been hiding under a rock for the past year, you are well aware that the Catholic Church has a major problem addressing the sexual abuse of minors by members of the clergy. I believe that progress has been made over the past 20 years in the area of prevention of sexual abuse, but it has not made much headway in the area of seeking out and offering healing to the victims of abuse. The victims and their families are hurting. The laity and leaders of the church are hurting. Hopefully this talk will help to heal those wounds and begin to restore peace to the church and her members. I am a survivor of clerical sexual abuse. And unlike the vast majority of victims, I have received much healing from the church that at one time harmed me. I'm a committed Catholic, seeking to help other victims and the church I love to heal. It is through recognition of the problem of sexual abuse of minors and the oftentimes uncharitable response of the church to victims that each of us can begin the healing process. By better understanding the suffering and needs of victims, we will move more effectively to minister to them. My name is Alan Aber. I was born and raised Catholic. I work in technical sales in the technology field, and my wife and I founded a nonprofit ministry for families. I was sexually abused by a Catholic priest between the ages of 12 and 14, and I have been healing from this trauma over the past 21 years. If you would have asked me a few years ago if I would ever share my story of being sexually abused by a priest with strangers, I would have died of fear at the thought. God has been gradually leading me towards acceptance of what happened and the complete freedom from it. Interestingly enough, if the revelations of Archbishop McCarrick and the Pennsylvania grand jury report in the summer of 2018 had not come to light, I probably would not be giving this talk. But all that changed when our world started talking about the failings of the Catholic Church. I say our world because I am a committed and active Catholic. My wife and I homeschool our children and manage a nonprofit family ministry, sharing the good news about God's plan for family life. We live across the street from our parish, and our community is our church. In other words, we live and breathe Catholicism. We love our faith dearly. When all our friends began talking about the clerical abuse scandal, we felt awkward to say the least. They would ask my wife and I how we felt about it and what they should and could do to help victims and our church heal. Some of our friends even struggled to reconcile being a part of a church in which some priests harmed children and then often treated the victims as adversaries rather than members of the church who were very much in need of love and compassion. As the news continued during the end of the summer months and intensified as that year went on, it was apparent that God was calling me and my wife to share some very personal and intimate details of my childhood and how God entered into that suffering and how He and His church healed us. As I have pondered my unique perspective on clerical sexual abuse, I often wondered if I was the only victim who was still a committed, active Catholic. The victims that are in the headlines are usually anti-Catholic and even anti-religion. They often hate the church and strive for its demise, and I don't blame them. These victims not only experience sexual abuse, but also rejection by their church, by their spiritual father. Victims of sexual abuse and their families, members of the laity, and leaders in our church have all felt a sense of an abuse of trust. They trusted that their children would be safeguarded. They trusted that the church would believe them when they reported their abuse. They trusted the abuser would be removed from ministry and punished, and their trust was betrayed. It is my hope that this talk provides a beginning to repair that broken trust. So I'll be speaking about three aspects of the scourge of sexual abuse within the Catholic Church. First of all, the effect of clerical sexual abuse on the church community. Secondly, the need for healing, not just protection. And how to protect our church and our families in the future. So the effect of clerical sexual abuse on the church community. The reality is that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men have experienced sexual abuse. Not by priests, but sexual abuse. It doesn't matter who it comes from, it's traumatic no matter what. Within the Catholic Church, it might be a bit more pronounced because you're not sexually abused by a parent who you can get away from, but you're abused by a priest. And in a sense, abused by the church. And so you can't get away from that. There are Catholic churches everywhere They're in the news all the time. For victims of clerical sexual abuse, they're constantly reminded that this happened. It's hard for them to get away from it, and it explains why some even choose to end their life, because they can't get away from that constant reminder and those constant triggers of what happened to them. Abusers groom everyone. Over the past few years, every time somebody comes out with an accusation, there was one in particular against a very conservative guy, and there's been a few conservatives. This is not a conservative or a liberal problem within the church. So there was a conservative priest that was accused, and a conservative organization within the church came out and said, well, it's been 40 years as a single victim, and it's been 40 years since it happened, and we believe it's not accurate. Everybody knows this priest. He's a fantastic guy. He's being targeted because he's a conservative. And you hear the same thing on the liberal side, right? That, targeted because he's a liberal. Or people find it hard to believe because abusers groom everyone in their community. They want to make sure that if this victim or victims, if somebody chooses to come forward and report them, that they're going to be a whole line of people that will stand up and go, there's no way this guy did that. Because abusers groom everyone as their alibis. They do it so that they can protect themselves against being outed. So abusers groom everyone, but only abuse a few. So what does a victim go through? Fear. Fear is the worst. Fear, isolation, and a profound need for healing. Think of trauma as this wound, and it's over a varying part of your body. So you think about a wound like maybe a sunburn, right? And somebody accidentally slaps you on the back and you go, oh, that hurt. And they had no idea they did it. That's what trauma is. But it can be something as simple as you saying, for example, oh, yeah, I don't really like what you did there. And all of a sudden this person is traumatized because it reminds them that they have this secret to hide. And so friends and family can inadvertently trigger a survivor if they haven't been healed. So victims, if you feel that fear, if you feel that isolation, if you feel that it's your fault, it's not. Go get the help you need. Find your voice. I went to a meeting with the Maria Goretti Network. Miguel Prats is the guy who started it. Great work, great organization. Anyway, he started this group, and we had a meeting, and one person came. Now, to me, as a person who organizes events, my professional life, and also in our ministry, having one person show up or a small number of people makes you feel like a failure. But for Miguel, after the meeting, he said, that was a fantastic meeting. And I'm like, how? Why was it so good? And he said, because someone found their voice. They had never shared what had happened to them with anyone, and they chose to share it that day. It was beautiful that a captive was set free. So a victim needs to find their voice. Are you, as a member of the laity or as a leader of the church, are you one that's willing to listen to that person when they come and share with you? So how do you actually make yourself someone that a victim will feel like sharing with? So here's how you do it. One, be aware of your own experience of trauma. We all experience traumas in our lives. To the extent that we're healed from those traumas, we can help other people heal. Be careful with your words. As that example of the conservative priest that was accused shows, our words can hurt people. They can hurt survivors. So be very careful when you speak about a priest that you knew who may have been accused of hurting someone. Only 2%, less than 2% of the accusations of clerical abuse are deemed false. That was from the John Jay report that the USCCB commissioned. So most of the time when someone comes and shares this very painful experience that they've had, they're telling the truth. And it may be a truth that is very hard for you to understand. Say this priest was your spiritual director. How hard would that be for you to admit that maybe that priest did something wrong, something that wrong? So be careful with your words. Be open to entering into the suffering of a member of someone who suffered sexual abuse. That's so important, and it's so difficult. For a victim, they feel like there's no one who cares about them. That if they were to find out, if someone else was to find out what and this is what they believed, what they had done, that they would look at them differently and they would avoid them like the plague. It's such a common occurrence. So don't be that person. Be open to entering into the suffering of someone who's been traumatized substantially. And it's not going to be easy. But man, the rewards in heaven are incredible. So be willing to enter into that and carry on the healing ministry of Jesus Christ. We need in our church more than just protection. We need healing. Protection in the church is something the church has worked on a lot with safe environment, with background checks and all those things. But we need to focus on healing. Let me tell you a story that will illustrate this. So the Catholic Church, Bark of Peter, sailing through the ocean, and imagine a priest abusing a child. It's in essence throwing them off the boat. And as they get older, they're still out there in the water and they're trying their best to stay afloat. And as they get older, it gets harder. And they're looking at the boat over there, and the boat has a sign on it. It says, if you've been harmed by the church or you've been thrown off the boat, call this number. Swim over to the boat. We'll help you get in. You know how hard that is for a victim to actually choose to do that? It's almost impossible. What we need is for people to jump off the boat, swim out to the victim, and sit there next to them and go, I'm here to help you. People don't think you're there to help them. They don't think there's any help at all. But you can choose to get in that turbulent water, as the Pope recently spoke about, that turbulent tempest that's going on around us, and to be the hands and feet of Christ to someone who is in desperate need of that healing and that help to swim back to the boat. We need to heal our communities. When a priest abuses someone, and this happened recently down here, Father Michael Sullivan, credibly accused, removed from ministry. Legionnaires of Christ did a great job of saying this is what happened, and he's been removed. He abused college girls, not kids, but man, how traumatic. And he gave spiritual direction to a lot of people in my own community. And for many of them, they just struggled so hard to reconcile this priest who used to talk about vice and how horrible it was. And yet he was engaged in vice at the same time. The community it still is hurting. I've talked to many people at the parish that he was at down in Texas A&M and people in my own community who he had done spiritual direction for, and it's hard. The sense of betrayal they feel is incredible. They need help just as much as the direct victims so that our community can be healed. So we cannot neglect healing the community where abusers operated. Our priest, oh my gosh, talk about people who've been traumatized. Can you imagine being a priest, working with these fellow brother priests and thinking you're all in this fight together to save souls, only to find out that you had a wolf in sheep's clothing that you trusted? How traumatic. Our priests need encouragement. They need healing. They need strong fathers, their bishops, to help them work through this traumatic event in the lives and their ministries. So, in my case, I say I was healed by two families. The family is the best place for healing. That's why our dysfunctional family, the church, it is so important that we heal our family, the church, so that it can extend healing to those who have been harmed by the church family, members of the church family. I was saved by two families. The lies that the abuser taught me about sexual morality were pretty enticing. I lived by them for a long time. And yet my wife and her family, they presented a model of a holy family. It was more enticing than the lies that I had been taught, the path that I have been led down. And I embraced it. Holy families save and heal victims. A holy family will make a holy parish. Holy families are infectious. They can help other families to embrace holiness. And then you end up having this holy parish. And it's only going to continue. And then our holy parishes can make up a holy diocese. And our holy diocese can truly transform our church. It's not quick. It's not easy to fix dysfunctional families. But it is the work that we need to do to get at the core of the problem and to root this horrible sin in our church and to get it out of it. Today, most of our parishes look like dysfunctional families, and we can fix it. We need to focus on healing families, which are the basic cell of society. So how do we protect our church and our families? First of all, protect our families. We need to heal the family. The church has a responsibility to teach parents how to be holy families. The church has good news. Let's share it. Our ministry to families, that's its goal. We were called to it. God has good news, and he wants to share it through the family. That's how he chose to come into the world, and for 30 years lived and sanctified the family. We must remind parents that they are the primary educators and protectors of their children. In our world, we've been given this golden opportunity right now. We're all at home. We're all with our families. We're all learning how to eat meals together, how to play together, how to rebuild maybe a fractured family into one that is holy and healthy. Parents, only you can protect your children. Trust but verify. Discern what is good and right for your family. Don't let the church, don't let teachers, don't let coaches tell you what is best for your children. They may give you advice. Consider it. But in the end, God gave you the role to be educator and protector of your family. Take that role seriously. Don't be like Adam. When in the garden, he stepped back and let his wife engage in sin with a serpent. Protect your family. God gave you the tools to do it. Engage in it. Do not be afraid. Protect our church. Right now, our attack surface is greatly reduced. There is no ministry to children going on right now. We're at home with our families. Our attack surface is reduced. Let's be very prudent about what we add back in. The principle of subsidiarity. Who is the smallest unit that can raise and protect children? Is it the church? No, it's families. The family unit is called to protect and to educate and to nourish and to make disciples of their children. We as a church should focus on educating the adults and how to do that. Equip the parents to lead their family, to make disciples of their children, and to be witnesses to other families within the community. We are called to build a healthy community. So here's your call to action. Build your holy family. Set your priorities. Right now, our priorities have been reset for us. We got nothing on our calendars, very little. As you start to add it back, as we come out of this time of isolation, set your priorities careful. Be careful not to get busy. And this will help you remember, busy stands for being under Satan's yoke. When you are too busy, you don't have no time for God. Set your priorities. Strive to have time for your family. Do not let the allure of the world convince you that it is best to be busy all the time and to have your kids be busy with other things all the time and not be in your family. Set your calendar with God first, spouse second, children next, and then everybody else. That's everybody else. Church, sports, everything else. All right. Pray as a family. Start by praying at the meals. Ask your kids what they want to pray for. You'll find out what's on their heart. And then expand it. Work up to doing a rosary a day like Our Lady of Fatima asked us to do. Pray a rosary a day. If you can't get through a whole rosary because you have small kids, pray a decade of the rosary for someone, for some intention. Pray as a family. And don't forget to play as a family. So set your priorities. Pray as a family. Now play as a family. Your kids may know you love them because you've told them, but they may not know you like them. What play does is it levels the field and it shows us that we are willing and interested in spending time, excessive amounts of time, with our kids, just playing with them. That can be board games, that can be sports, it can be anything. Reading to your kids. Play as a family. Give of your time generously to your kids. And next, love unconditionally. Not love with reckless abandon, but love unconditionally. Accept the person. Love the person. Maybe don't love the sin. Don't love the sin. God hates sin. Love the person and desire what's best for them. Love unconditionally. Build community. Once we get out of this time of isolation, as families get together, invite a family over for dinner, invite a family over to pray together, to do a Stations of the Cross. Right now you could do it over web conferencing. right? Don't be afraid to do that. Build community. It's so important for your kids to know that they're not the only oddballs out there who are living this radical Catholic life. And know beyond the shadow of a doubt that your family can evangelize and change the world. The witness of a family saved me. If it can save someone who's been traumatized like I was, it can change the world. So go out and change the world through the witness of love within your family.